hello everybody. This is Brunch with Brent. Today I'm joined by kind of a special guest. Today I'm joined by Chase Nunes. Chase, how you doing?
I'm good. I don't know if I would call myself special. I'm just a guy. I just hang out.
A humble guy, apparently.
Yeah.
I say special because I guess some of the JB listeners will recognize that voice. I know when you and I connected over the phone yesterday, just to kind of get connected before this chat, I was like, oh yeah, that voice is so nostalgic.
Should I go? This is Unfilter, episode 237, recorded on Wednesday. Should I go down that road or whatever? Yeah.
Well, you could.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, that's a little bit of a hint of some of your history with Jupiter Broadcasting, right? So, you're a co-host of Unfilter, and some people absolutely loved that program. And can you give us a little bit of a background? How long it went for, what it was like for you?
Man, I should have pulled the history sheet, or I know there's probably a wiki somewhere, and I would have sounded a much more smarter than my answer now. But about a few years ago, I want to say maybe, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't remember the exact year, but I was listening. In my previous job, I would have to commute a lot. And I would have to drive across mountain passes, and there would be times and I'd be on the road for maybe 3 to 4 hours. And since I was traveling across mountain passes, and this is before streaming, Spotify and all these other providers, that cellular, it just wasn't dependable. So I was more heavily into downloading podcasts and things like that. And so back in the day, I would download No Agenda. No Agenda is a political podcast with John C. Dvorak, and that's how I kind of found it, and Adam Curry, and they would twice a week have incredible banter and talk about the political stories of the day. I was listening, as I normally would, as a trusty listener in the morning, and all of a sudden I heard an ad, or not an ad, but a donation from Chris to the show. And what they would do on No Agenda is, they would give props to those who would donate to the show. And so, Chris Fisher and said, they usually would say the city and the state. And so Chris mentioned, Marysville, Washington. And I was just like, wait, what? I was driving, and I was just like, wait, this guy's in my backyard. And
no way.
Yeah. So, and obviously, he said Jupiter Broadcasting. And so I did a, Google search, and I discovered Jupiter Broadcasting. I was like, holy crap. So, and obviously at the time I was also podcasting. I've been doing my own geeky gaming content called Geek Gamer TV. So obviously I've been involved with, podcasting thing for a while. And so I was like, I got to get in touch with this guy. We can chat and talk shop, or, whatever, So obviously through the power of Google's, and I reached out to Chris, we, became friends and started, talking about, recording and audio techniques. He very graciously welcomed me in his home, met Angela and the kids. And that's pretty much how our relationship was kind of born. And then from there, we started going into the Unfilter side.
Like, what was the incentive to just reach out to a complete stranger and say, hi, let's get connected?
I guess maybe that lends myself to who I am, I guess, as a person. I'm in some ways, I'm not afraid to reach out and just open lines of communication and just see what happens. I was involved with podcasting prior to reaching out to Chris for a number of years. I would be doing my own geeky and gaming content. I did a podcast that we nearly had 300 episodes until I kind of put it on hiatus, called Geek Gamer Weekly, where I would sit down with my friends and we would have occasional guests from the technology world. I mean, we've had, prominent guests come on and we just chat about things. And I was involved with the whole podcasting thing. So, here in my town, this town is not very big that I live in. It's maybe, 50,000 people. And so obviously when you hear, another big, good podcaster, appreciates the quality and the work that he does. Because when I did the Google search and I found all of his content, I was just like, wow, this is great. I'd love to chat with him about this stuff. I see he doesn't have a lot of gaming stuff. So I'm just like, man, maybe we can do some gaming stuff, collaborate. I mean, who knows? And so there was a commonality with us both enjoying No Agenda.
Of course. So the chances for having something in common is probably pretty high, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We share our skepticisms of, government and tax dollars and also, how media, journalism and media and commercialism and all these different factors play into how we consume and see our content. So obviously I had to, that's why I reached out and, see what happens. If nothing happened, no harm, no foul. If and that's how really it kind of kicked off. And then, we'd start chatting about, how if we did a political show, what would it look like? And, obviously we do have some awesome dedicated listeners who, when they first started listening to us, we were not really a video driven show per se. We would specialize on specific topics to start off. And if I remember right, the first one was, I think episode 1 was about cannabis. But then a lot more people wanted to know our thoughts about the current events, about what's going on, and not really of historical record, if you will.
That's kind of how I remember some of the later ones, the later episodes, was sort of digesting the news in a whole, maybe in a skeptical way, or a way that gives extra insight into what the general sort of news programs are throwing out there. Yeah,
exactly. And you have to be, I guess, everybody really should be, mindful of, the information that's being presented, the motivation behind that information, and also, doing your own due diligence and doing your homework, and also being willing, and I know it's a lot of work, but it also be willing to look at all the alternative perspectives of a said topic. I think sometimes we get so trapped in our silos and our biases about certain things that, and obviously it helps formulate our opinions about things. So, what we were trying to do, and what I was trying to do, at least on my side of things, is try to bring a perspective just of normalcy, if you will, and I always try to consider all the sides of the equation on it before trying to formulate my opinion about, the president of the United States, or cannabis legalization, pharmaceutical stuff, gun control, all these things, and obviously a lot of people have, money in the game. That's why one of the taglines on the show is "Show me the money," because at the end of the day, there's going to be some sort of money path. And so we eventually landed into a decent and good format, thanks to the awesome community and producer Matt and Chris. And, we were able to, put something special together. But obviously, as the years gone by and, JB got, popular with their Linux and tech content, some awesome things happened to JB. But obviously one of the minor side effects, if you will, is, we had to sunset Unfilter, and that's okay. A lot of people are like, oh, wow. It's like, I get it. Politics is one thing, but the other thing too is, it's, family and, relationships and, financial security and, healthcare, all these other, I think, a little bit more important things than a podcast. And so obviously, Chris and, JB and all that, everything's doing great. But right now I would say, with the topics happening, in 2020 and politics and
oh man, there are a few.
there are things that are happening. I mean, even for you, up in Canada, it's like there's been some great things that we could have talked about Trudeau, and
yeah, like he got a beard recently, right?
Well, yeah, yeah. To be fair, and if people have been following me on the Twitters and the Facebooks and all that, yeah, I've had some hair on my face now, and the only reason that I do is those who saw me last at LinuxFest Northwest or have been following my content know that I've dropped some weight. I've lost about 145 pounds over the last couple of years.
Holy, that's incredible. You know that, right?
Yeah. I guess.
It is unbelievable. Like, that's a whole me.
Yeah, I've had people say that to me too. Like I have colleagues at work, and they're happy for me too. And there's some people like, yeah, weigh 130, 140 pounds. Yeah, I lost a whole person, and it's true. I was very, very gracious to be a part of a weight loss program. It's worked great, but one of the side effects of that is I lost my jacket. I lost my fat layer. I lost warmth, and so when I hit my goals and I finished the program, I finished last September 2019. I've already was starting to feel how cold it could get. I did an Iceland trip early last year.
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah. And so, I like right now, as I talk to you, I'm in my home studio talking to you. I have 3 layers on, and my studio is pretty warm, with electronics and the computers and all that. And that's just because of, losing the fat.
For you was one of the main motivators to kind of shift things a little bit in terms of that weight loss. Like, was that a long time coming, or something just happened all of a sudden and you jumped into a change of lifestyle, or how'd that go?
Well, there was a lot of factors. For me, there was a death in the immediate family, for one. And secondly, I always wanted to try to be healthier. And sometimes, we either lose our way or don't exactly know the tools to get there. And so that's what I did. Basically, I thanks to an opportunity that opened itself up to me, I was able to get into this weight loss program and just really stick to it. And it was one of the most hardest things I've ever had to do, because it was very structured and very rigid. And I was never, ever a vegetable guy growing up.
Right.
And so for me, it was a change to see if I could do it, because I didn't know if I could. And I'm trying to formulate the answer good here, just because it's one of those things for me that is obviously major and life changing. And I still have a minor bit of a struggle now, because since I'm off the program, it's trying to find the right balance of what to eat and make sure you get the right activity level. But really, it's just about being healthy, because I want to be around. I want to be around for friends and family and enjoy life. And that's where, thanks to losing the weight, because I was probably on a track to have a heart attack or something worse. And, you want to be around and enjoy things. And so, obviously the weight loss has helped with that. I have more energy, more flexibility, more motivation to just keep going and do more. And that's where I've been able to fall through on that. And now with plus beard. So that's great.
Some people say that doing that kind of journey is one of the most difficult things. Even some people have said it's harder than like quitting smoking and stuff like that. Mostly, I think probably, and tell me if this is spot on or totally off, but probably because you're trying to instill like a total lifestyle change that's permanent. Is that how you would describe it? Or?
Well, I took it I went a different way with it. The program that I was on, which is called 30-10 Weight Loss for Life. It's a local chain here in the Northwest, and they you have to still bring your own fresh vegetables to the table and your fresh proteins like chickens, not sticks, chicken, steak, or fish, and sticks too, and trees and leaves. No, I'm kidding about that. But salads are definitely important. But really, it was a structured plan. The hardest part for me during the plan was finding foods that were within the plan that are definitely healthy that I would start to enjoy. And so when I first started, literally, and I'll never forget it, on day one of the program, I'm having raw vegetables to try to figure out which vegetables I like. And my stomach's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you putting this inside?
What is this?
Yes. It's like, ah. But eventually, I figured out which vegetables I like. Thanks to hot sauce, like Tabasco.
Do what you have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're adding in flavor, but you're not adding sugar. That's the big thing. Get rid of sugar, get rid of the carbs. I used to be a heavy milk drinker. I don't drink much milk anymore. I grew up on a dairy farm, so that's where I got my addiction to milk. And I don't drink soda. I do drink a lot of tea and flavored water. But other than that, some of the stuff are simple, small, easy changes that, just minor tweaks. And, for example, gold leaf tea, is one of those products, and I'm not trying to do any product placements here, but it's one of those teas that it had a good flavor and it doesn't have any added sugar. And it gave me that little bit of caffeine that you need, maybe when you're waking up in the morning. And because I'm not a coffee guy, but I do like tea. And so I would, have some tea, and then after a while, I started getting a taste for it. And then, when you have that splash of, maybe you have a lemonade or Coke by accident, and you're like, man, this is so sweet.
Yeah.
After a while, those changes are just normal, and it's not a big deal, because at the end of the day, I look at it as in food in a few different categories. One category for like special occasions and events, or visiting a place you've never been and you want to try the local cuisine. I say have fun with it, eat whatever you want. But then, the other facet is, if you're just working, you're just living your day, you're going to job, you're recording a podcast or whatever you're doing, then look at it, food as fuel. Just, put in what you need, be good about it, put good stuff in your car, and you'll be good. And you could still have decent, good things to eat. You just got to put a little bit more work into it and not be lazy. And I've really leaned on like sous vide, love sous vide, and cooking that way, and, cooking whole foods, and try to stay away from processed as much as possible, make your own baked goods. So I think there's ways to tweak it. You could still stay healthy and have a good time. And, thanks to it, and thanks to that, I feel better and I feel good. And that's part of the reason why I'm slowly getting back into the creating content process, is just because of that. Because I had a rough few years because of personal family stuff, and I got out of a lot of things, but I was always kind of there in the background, helping out here and there, and doing things just to keep my skills going and keep my relationships solid and tight. And so that's where I'm at, and I'm feeling good about it.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing transformation, really. How did that journey affect the people around you, from the people closest to you, but also people at work and stuff like that?
For my day job, I'm an engineer, a broadcast engineer for Channel 4, which is the ABC affiliate in Seattle. Obviously, working in media, you got a lot of type A personalities and extroverts. Obviously, our goal together is to deliver the news in a technical, professional way, and, accurate and truthful way, if you're working the news side of things. And so, everybody knew that I was going through a weight loss program, and, they would see that I would, I started, and I would, I'm packing my lunch and I'm preparing my lunch every day at work. But the interesting thing, though, is that at one point, people realized, like, wow, you've lost a lot of weight.
Like a light switch almost.
Yeah. I was losing it gradually. It's not like, one day I show up, I'm 100 pounds down, but after a while, people go like, holy crap, dude, you've really, you look great. And so the support from work was phenomenal, and, that helped. But really, honestly, if it wasn't for my awesome wife and being supportive and helping and, preparing, good, healthy meals, because I work, my hours, I work 4/10s. And so dinner times are limited. So, we try to maximize the time to spend together during the week. And so she'll have, dinner ready to go pretty much when I get home, roughly. And we have a pretty solid time. And she, thanks to her, helping with the lunches and just helping, be supportive of that plan. And also the weight loss company themselves, 3010 Weight Loss. One of the things I really appreciate about them is it's not like a robot kind of a situation where, you get this plan because everybody gets this plan. It is really customized to your body type and metabolism. And, it's very scientific and they're recording your numbers every single week. So if there's a trend or something that we need to adjust, we adjust it. And so they've been very supportive. And then obviously, of course, my, family and friends and people both inside the podcasting, geeky gaming, pinball circles. And
so it sounds like support is one of those big elements that, is essential almost to doing this kind of thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I started, and I'm not trying to be like tooting my own horn, blah, blah, blah. But really if I wasn't able to start doing it, like if I didn't go like, all right, I got to do this, then it wouldn't have happened. Right. I was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I need to do this. I want to be around. And, I just try to give myself internal positive reinforcement. I don't know if you would call it meditation, whatever you want to call it. I was just trying to be like, okay, I'm just week by week, day by day, sometimes hour by hour. It's just like, we're going to do this and it's going to happen. And I'm going to keep pushing forward and don't be lazy. I was just kind of repeating like the words, don't be lazy in my head. Just don't be lazy. Just follow through, and there was a period of time where it's like, I was really pushing hard to try to get those last few pounds. And so I was like taking the stairs all the time at work. It's just like, the little things that you try to do. And at the end of the day, you're good for it. You're healthier for it. And you're going to be around, hopefully longer for it. So that was what I was trying to do. And, so far it's worked out well. Obviously I've been off the program since like August, September. And now that I'm not on a structured program and I'm not being fully like held to the fire, so to speak, I've slipped up a bit, I had a few cookies here and there over the holidays.
You are human though, right?
I am human. Yeah. And, I'm being diligent. Like I'm not going back to milk. I'm not having there's some things that even if I have.
So, the perfect evils, it sounds like.
Right. It's like there are things that I am slipping and letting go. However, I refuse to, I will not go back to having 2 gallons of milk a week like that. I was really bad. So I will not go back to that. But yeah, it's been a great journey. It's been awesome. And I'm ready to live life and feel great. I look and feel younger today than I do honestly 10 years ago.
Holy jeez. Yeah. That's an amazing thing. Holy.
Yeah. I've shared some pictures from 10 years, comparison on my Twitter, and it's been great.
Well, I will divulge a sort of a reaction that I had, and so I had my first LinuxFest Northwest experience 2 years ago now, and you've been quite involved with Jupiter Broadcasting at LinuxFest Northwest, and we'll get into that in just a minute after I share with you this slightly embarrassing thing of mine.
No worries, man.
And so I was just newly getting connected with everybody at Jupiter Broadcasting at that time. So I didn't really know everybody in the same way that I do now. And so I was just kind of saying hi and stuff like that and hanging around the booth, which is always a great time. And I remember you sitting there and you kind of like work behind the scenes, kind of controlling all the live feed and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. And then so when it was suggested that you and I have a chat, I was like, oh yeah, Chase, of course. And then I went to your Twitter page and I was like, wait, this doesn't look like Chase, or at least not the Chase of my memories. Then I was like, oh no, wait, maybe I've like made the wrong link between certain people. But then it was like, no, wait, you've gone through this amazing transformation. So I could totally back that up. You definitely look 10 years younger and all good for it. So congrats there for sure.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it sounds really super important. But I touched on LinuxFest Northwest there for a moment. And can you give me a bit of background there? I guess you were probably asked to help out with some of the broadcasting stuff there since you had some expertise.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that obviously, I've been involved with Jupiter Broadcasting before the big move over to JB1, if you will. And I will take partial credit, by the way, of that name, JB1, and I will take that to my grave. And basically, when Chris and everybody in discussion was planning on moving the big productions from the garage facility at JBHQ, formerly the residence of Chris Fisher and all that, to the place over in Arlington, obviously needed a name. And so I was like, well, maybe it should be JB1, like the first studio, and it just kind of stuck, and it's evolved from there. And so obviously, we've already been doing a podcast together. And so I've been, I was also guesting on a few other shows. I've made my appearance on Faux Show a few times. And so the community who knew who I was, through a couple different shows. Also, we can't forget How to Linux. There are maybe 10 people that watch that show. So I want to reach out to those guys.
That's a new one to me. So give me some background, because I don't know that one.
So Chris and I, obviously I forget what summer this was, but we obviously we're doing Unfilter and wanted to branch out and try to create some more content. But obviously, with the added costs and energy to do that, we launched a new kind of pilot project, if you will, and show called How to Linux. Here I am, basically a PC, Windows kind of guy. I know about Linux, but I wasn't really doing much with it, and the whole premise of the show was to help the new user migrate and move over and start using Linux and using it for, your basic desktop, for example, for, email or what have you, web browsing and things like that. And so, and then also we would throw in, how Linux is working for everybody in the common world, if you will. And so we'd have interviews, and I was able to use some of my networking contacts, and we reached out to one of my friends works at Pogo Linux over in Redmond, Washington. And so we'd actually take video, go over there, do interviews, and, so there was a lot of cool things and some how-tos, but it didn't really get a lot of traction. Maybe part of it was me. Part of it was the content, but some people thought that, it was a paid promotional from Pogo Linux, for example. They felt it was more of a commercial than it was an actual informational or how-to. So, sure, maybe there's some tweaks to be made, but the show never really gained traction. But, it was, we gave it a try, we gave it a shot. But we were still doing Unfilter. I was still doing guest appearances. And so LinuxFest Northwest popped up right here in our backyard, and JB wanted to do a much more solid video presence there at the show. And, I offered to lend my experience and expertise in that area. And at first, I had some frustrations because the goal at the time was to try to use everything Linux for the broadcast.
Which was a pretty challenging goal at that time.
It was very challenging. And that's why the frustrations, for me, it's always about quality. I really, really want a high quality product on something that I'm working on, because I feel it reflects upon me. And I know some people don't feel it or take it that way. I just maybe take it as a personal pride thing. I just wanted to be good and a good presentation for people. And so when we were having technical issues and, tuner compatibilities and OBS wasn't really playing, solidly, and we would have overheating issues. It was like a flashback to hell. And so, but obviously I also understood the premise of why. This is an open source convention. This is Linux. We got to show that, we don't need anything else. We can do all this in open source. And I totally understand and the value of that. But I was also fearing that, it could be hurtful to JB, because, up to then and still today, people expect a quality product, that, oh, this is something produced by JB. It's going to be quality. It's going to be good content. It's going to be good stuff. And so, they're at LinuxFest Northwest, obviously doing interviews and showcasing, open source in the Linux community, because they're already like working on interviews and setting things up and promotions and marketing and all these other things there at the venue. They didn't want to have to worry about, all right, well, Chris is already doing 1,000 things at once at that point. And so anything that I could have done to help, I stepped in and did. And then eventually over time, the video stuff evolved. There was one year I couldn't make it because I was sick, unfortunately. But last year, for example, I like the constraints of Linux for me was a little bit lifted. I was able to put together, a really pretty decent presentation. We had a little broadcast booth, and then we, had an interview area and got some lighting and audience. And unfortunately, the venue is a little wonky when it comes to configuration. But yeah, that's how I got involved with LinuxFest Northwest a number of years ago. And just with the exception of 1 year where I was sick, I've been a part of it ever since, doing obviously the video setup and the production and the live stream and people being able to consume a really great Linux convention in the Northwest and actually probably in the United States. I mean, we just so happen to have it here in the Northwest. And it's a great community, and been able to, thanks to Linux and, LinuxFest Northwest, I use quite a few open source products. I have like multiple Raspberry Pis. I have a Pi hole, and also I have a Retro Pi for gaming, and also use a Raspberry Pi for digital capture from pinball machines.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, so I'm very very much involved still in using open source, and we have some open source platforms at work. Some stuff that runs on CentOS, for example, and some Ubuntu installations for our live view stuff. So, and also thanks to JB and the community, I've also been able to open my horizons and open my thoughts when it comes to software, but also learning that, it shouldn't just be about a club of things. I think sometimes it's very easy to, jump and make fun of, Microsoft or Apple. But, obviously I think we all want some really great, decent tools, and being able to cross-pollinate and talk to each other and not be so hardcore in our individual communities. And I think part of that too comes back to my political philosophies and being open and talking with people is don't be so cliquey.
Yeah.
And let's be great about it. And that's one thing that I think that the Linux Fest and the Linux community, at least in the Northwest that I've experienced, has been great with that. Hence why I, even though we don't do Unfilter anymore, obviously, I still am involved with JB, and I'm still doing things with JB, and still chatting and good friends with Angela and Chris and producer Matt and everybody in the JB Discord. I'm still around. I'm still there. And so people do ting me. Ting. There you go. Ping me. Sorry. See, there you go.
That's a legacy thing.
Thanks, Ting. No. So yeah. Well, and actually, also thanks to JB, I found out about Ting, and I used Ting for a long period of time as I was trying out like some sort of open source security system that I needed GSM, and Ting just launched GSM, and I found out about it through JB and tried them out, and it worked out great.
Yeah, Ting, just for those who don't know, was a sponsor of many of the shows for a long time. And I actually, I just got a few SIM cards. Even though I'm here in Canada, I got a few Ting SIM cards for when I travel to the States, and they're great. They actually, the funny thing is they operate. Their headquarters is in Toronto, but they can't buy airspace in Canada because the way we do it here is really messed up. So they decided, okay, well, we'll just operate in the States and have our headquarters in Toronto. So they're a Canadian company, but they operate in the States because they can play nice there. So it's hilarious. Yeah. When I learned that, I thought it was really funny.
I didn't know Canada was a tax haven. That's amazing. No,
good to have neighbors.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, you're dabbling in Linux a little bit, and it sounds like you've gone quite a ways, but how is it for you kind of, like jumping in and out of the Linux community? Because you're a bit more of an outsider than some of us, who are deep in it. But what is that like? Because maybe once a year you dive into this Linux Fest, which is like 100% Linux, 100% for 3 days.
Obviously, I think like the Raspberry Pis, for example, are a great item, and thanks to the Raspberry Pi, I've been more involved in Linux and open source than I had before. And so thanks to, I'm always, while I'm not 100%, living, breathing Linux every day, like I mentioned earlier, I still deal with it. And I'm comfortable with it, where some people may say, for example, they're a hardcore, Windows user. That's all they ever use. And then they run into a Linux system at work and they may go, oh, man, Linux, I got to deal with this now.
Oh, right.
For me, it's like, sweet. I get excited when I come across a unit at work that I didn't know was running Linux, is running Linux. And I'm always quick to ping Chris. I'm like, look what I found at work, and it's just like, look at this, our prompting system, open source, runs Linux. Our video, some of our video delivery systems, open source, runs Linux, and it can really show the public too, how many professional applications that are out there run Linux and run it extremely well. I mean, we have some systems that we have at work that run Linux that are so solid and so dependable. It's amazing, that a Windows system would have failed miserably years ago. Like, we have one system, I won't mention what, because I don't want to jinx it, that's been running like for 5,000. Last time I saw it was like 5,100 days without interruption, without problem.
That's a little while.
It is. It's quite a while, number of years. And that's just because, with broadcast, there are some systems that we have that you can't turn them off. You can't restart them without a, way well planned in advance, maintenance period and, downtime, planned downtime. For me, I don't personally consider it like dipping in and out. I think it's like, obviously with LinuxFest Northwest, I'm able to kind of reabsorb myself in the great open source community and also the JB community, of course, as well. I'm able to, catch up with, listeners and viewers of shows past and, people who remember me from my guest appearances on other shows. And I mean, hell, even last year, before LinuxFest Northwest, I pop into the JB studio and, half the people are like, "Oh my God, it's Chase! Oh my God, I don't even recognize you!" And we start chatting on the stream and chatting about what's going on. So, I think the hardcore historical long term JB viewers, they know where I am and they know who I am and what my part is in the community. And obviously, there's going to be new people be like, "Who's this guy? I've never heard of this guy." And that's great too, because for me, I love interacting and I love, just having great communication and chatting about whatever. And that's probably one of the reasons why, of course, I enjoy podcasting and I enjoy sharing my thoughts, even though lately I haven't been. I've just been kind of working hard and sarcastically responding to people on Twitter and having fun with that.
Yeah. So yesterday you teased me a little bit about, or you teased a story about your Twitter handle that happened, I think, near the end of Unfilter. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So my last name is Nunes, Nunes, and I was very fortunate to get my last name as my Twitter handle. I tend to be an early adopter in a lot of things, and so I jumped in early. I was in early on Google Wave, and now I'm early on Twitter. This thing called Twitter, where you only have 100 and remember, kids, back in the day, it was 140 characters. Apps weren't really prominent. You could tweet by text. That's why it was 140 characters. And so I got in very early, and I didn't use it that much, but I would twit and Twitter people and add and replies and all that, and be part of that. And so been with Twitter for a while. When about 3 years ago, and this is during the height of the Mueller investigation, and people are sending memos back and forth, and information being snuck to the White House, if you will. And there's this congressman out of California, Central Valley, California, and his name is Devin Nunes. Same spelling of my name.
Yeah, I was going to say your name is not necessarily, it's not a Smith or anything like that.
No. Yeah, it is unique in the sense that there's a lot of spellings of Nunes with a Z, like Nunez. It's a Hispanic name. My name has more of the Portuguese, heritage attached to it. And there are some Nuneses in the Central Valley. And actually, ironically, and I didn't tell you this, I was living in the Central Valley when he was running for Congress.
Oh, man, of course.
I remember this guy. And I remember him, back in the day being, he's a young guy, wants to make a difference. He's a Central Valley farmer. And, he ran for Congress and won. And so, obviously he's been there for a while, I think 10 or 12 years. And he took this memo of information to the President Trump. And a lot of people were not happy with what he did and the information, because he was the chair of the House Intelligence Committee. This is before the Democrats retook the House. And so he did an end round. He took some information to the White House and to President Trump. And a lot of people were not happy with what he did. And a lot of people didn't know who Devin Nunes was until this event occurred. And so when the media found out about it and the public found out about him, what do you do now today? People will go to Facebook and vent, and they also go to Twitter and vent.
Oh, of course. I see where this is going.
And so a lot of people started venting at Nunes on Twitter.
Oh, but that was actually you. Oh, gosh.
I'm at Nunes on Twitter. He's at Devin Nunes. And this is not the media's fault in any way. But what happens is people go, Congressman Nunes, everybody's always addressed by last name. They don't go, hey, Congressman Devin Nunes, and sometimes they'll say that in regards to stories, but usually things are always condensed because everything's moving at the speed of light. And so a lot of people would just go start typing in Nunes on Twitter, and then they don't read the description. They don't read what the handle is.
They just go for it.
They just go for it. And they just started venting. And so all of a sudden, the day that people found out about Devin Nunes was the day my Twitter handle was blowing up. And, I look at my phone and I have like 200 mentions, and it's pretty crazy. And so what do I do with this? And I'm just thinking, well, I'm just going to start sarcastically replying to all these people and quoting their tweets. and I did it to everybody, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. I don't care. I'm replying to everybody. And so I had fun with everybody on it. And a local tech blog called GeekWire, they're based out of Seattle. And a lot of people, may know their content, good stuff. And they reached out to me on Twitter, of course. And so had an interview with them. It was a nice blog post about it. And then at the time, I was also working for Channel 4. I've been there for a while now. And so they've known about this. And we all would have fun in the newsroom. I had some people in the newsroom call me Congressman, in passing, like, Congressman. I'm like, Congressman, good to see you. And so they did a news story about me. Matt Markovich, one of the really awesome reporters at KOMO News, did a story. And if you want to check it out, you can go to Nunes versus Nunes. So NUNESVS.com. That will forward you to a Twitter post that I posted of a video of the story that KOMO did.
You did have fun with this.
Yeah. And now it's actually hard for me to watch a little bit because it's before I started my weight loss program.
Yeah, right.
But that being said, the content was fun. It was gold. Had a great time with it. And so, it was about a 2.5 minute piece. It actually got picked up a little bit. Some Republican blogs on the East Coast picked it up. A few stations picked it up. I mean, it didn't blow up or anything, but it was fun.
That's the price of being an early adopter, I guess, right?
Yeah. And so of course, I'm having fun with this. And I've also registered Nunes2020.com. and and Devin actually is running for re-election this year. I'm waiting for the email or contact from the Nunes campaign to say, hey, are you interested in selling that .com? But I'm using it. I'm not squatting it in any way. If you go to Nunes2020.com, it actually redirects just to my Twitter site. It's legit. That's my name. You can't accuse me of squatting because it's me.
Oh man.
And so, yeah, that's been great. And I've been having fun with that. I also did a video spoof on Twitter called releasedmemo.com.
Oh my.
Where I did this video clip of me. This was my memo, and I had fun with it. So yeah, it's been a fun adventure, and obviously thanks to this Devin Nunes situation, I'm still keeping my eyes and my ears on what's happening in the world of all this, and so just sticking through it. And but yeah, Twitter's been good fun with me over these past few years for sure.
Chase, if you wanted to send out an ask to the listeners, to the community, something you want them to try or think about, or maybe even go check out, what would you put out there?
Well, I would say a couple of things. First off, kind of in the spirit of open source, we all should try to be sure that we keep an open mind about things. Obviously, with the polarizing nature of what's happening in politics and world relations and events and things of that nature, that we try to remember that we're people, and we need to have open minds and flexibilities, and also be sure to follow through and not be lazy in regards to staying in our comfort zones and silos. I watch news from MSNBC to Fox News. And other outlying fringing outlets. And for me, it's just, make sure you are well informed and vote if you're of age to vote, and be engaged. Don't be afraid. Don't make excuses. Just be a part of it. Be a part of the process, especially with everything that's going on. And then the other thing I would say, and I enjoy, and I love seeing kind of a big resurgence of, is go out and play some pinball. Pinball is, has had an incredible history, in many places across the U.S. and world. There was a long period of time where pinball was considered illegal.
What? Really?
Yeah.
For what reasons?
Considered a gambling device, because pinball would allow, for example, some of the older machines, you would play the game, and if you got to a certain score, and a lot of games today still have this, you would get a free game if you got to a certain score. And so some people, this is government officials back in the day, like, some of them were also tied to gambling rings and Al Capone. And I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff if you go back and look at some of the history. And so go out, play some pinball, have a drink if you drink, and just have some good time. The cool thing about pinball is it forces you to get up and get out.
Is that still on Geek Gamer TV?
Yeah, so I do not just pinball streaming, but also geeky and gaming content. The main website is geekgamer.tv, but I do all the streaming over on Twitch with the same name, twitch.tv/geekgamertv. And there's also Twitter and Facebook and all that with that name attached to it.
Chase, I want to say thanks so much for joining me and for sitting down with me and for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I want to say thank you to you and also the awesome JB community. And if you guys, for who don't know who I am, feel free to reach out, say hi. I'm very, you can find me everywhere, obviously on Twitter. We talked about that. But
at Nunes on Twitter, apparently, right?
At Nunes on Twitter. That's right. Yes. And actually, I have it in my description. It says, broadcast engineer for Channel 4 Seattle, not the congressman from California. So, but people don't read that anyway.
So you'll know when you hit the right one. Well, maybe we'll see you at LinuxFest Northwest this year. And let's chat soon. This has been great.